It's time now for the Casey Ingram Show on WSTU. The opinions expressed are those of the program host and guest and not necessarily those of WSTU. WSTU does not endorse products that may be mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WSTU. It's time to call in with your questions and comments at 220-9788, 220-WSTU. And now, here's Casey Ingram.
Well, happy hump day. It is Wednesday in Stewart in Paradise. So it is it's kind of the Miller Time show today because we have a wonderful repeat guest, Eric Miller from Talk About Martin. How are you doing, Eric?
And any better, I'd be you, Casey.
Hey, I don't know if I can agree or not on that one. So there you go. Love it. Eric, so you've been coming in once a month. Talk About Martin first. We're going to just say that's a great organization that you have put together to make sure that everybody in Martin County has a place to go to find out what's going on anywhere. It might be about the school board, might be about Indiantown, might be about the county, anything to do with Martin County.
Well, it's to help amplify their voice. You know, I think one person standing in the wild yelling at a tree doesn't always work. But when there's two people yelling and then three others find you and then you begin to garner a voice. But at that level, we are actually looking for contributors that would like to spend more time watching the goings-ons with the commission, with the Stewart City Council. And if you're out there, there's a way. If you go to talkaboutmartin.com, you can go to the contributor tab and request contributor status. And we'd love to have people that are really interested in their community, taking, unique perspectives. And it doesn't all have to be, chewing on some politician's backside all of the time, because there's a lot of good things that go on, like we've noted in Indiantown with the Kindu Center and community gardens.
The veterans.
There's a lot of veterans groups. There's a lot of good things that happen that we report on too. So it's not all the bad stuff. It's just that the bad stuff seems to be taking a more sensational tone these days than, it's mirroring a big political issue that's going on right now. Well,
it is. It's a microcosm of what happens in politics everywhere. And, at this juncture right now, we're seeing a lot of things happening in Indiantown, which is what we're going to focus on today, because it's one of those cases, be careful what you wish for. We've had many shows on Indiantown, but it keeps getting exasperated and it keeps growing. And that's since this last month. Let me digress just a moment here. Barbara Cloudis, a wonderful journalist here in the area, has been for many years, did an expose, a 5, or actually it's more like a 6-part series on what's happening in Indiantown. It's posted on my Facebook page in different posts, so you can see those series and read them, and I highly recommend them because it'll take much longer than an hour to go over everything that Barbara has uncovered. But truly, it's a little shocking, and I think that having an expose like this has opened the eyes of many of what can happen.
And I
government
think
runs amok.
That's actually an accurate statement to make, because her 10,000 plus word piece of journalism, and it is journalism, because I know Barbara well enough to know that she has piles of substantiated information and fact to back up everything that she said.
That's right.
That sits there, much like we do. Ours may be a little more loosely clipped to a clipboard somewhere, but she did a great service and put it in very plain English without any real editorial vindictiveness to it. And I think people attached to that because, and I say the reason that's obvious, is that the following days after that, the next village council meeting, there were over 100 people that were outside with homemade signs that were chanting, hey, hey, ho, ho, Howard Brown has got to go. There were people there wanting recall elections. There were people there because of a development that's going in that they were never noticed on properly, and the zoning changes took place, and according to what the neighbors are saying. So there were 3 to 5 different topics that people were really upset about, and when they heard that other people were coming to stand and voice their displeasure with the way that things are being run in Indiantown, there were a lot of people that showed up, and it was a very peaceful protest. It was good people from all races. There was black, brown, white, and it seems the council's the one that always wants to talk about this race issue. So I'm going to tell them right up front that was a very diverse group of people that are out there because one of the council people has been calling people that were there and telling them they better not show up for the next one because it was a racial attack against them. So I'm really getting a little sick and tired of the racial play that's being done out there, and it's being done by people that are full-fledged dyed-in-the-wool progressives, which we all know is a form of socialism, and we've been warning people about this for a long time. And this is where Martin County, you need to listen real close right now, because what is happening with these progressives in DC and across the rest of the world is sitting there with a budget and a lawmaking capability in Indiantown trying to form a new Pahokee, a new Belglade. You're going to end up with a progressive beehive in your backyard that's going to grow and grow and grow, and you're going to wake up and want to know where it came from.
What happened?
So Mary Lynn, James Campo at the Republican Party, guys, you got your work cut out in Indiantown, because they're coming for you, and they're coming for the rest of this area, just like they're going to get with Stewart. Stewart's getting a much more progressive kind of mentality about it. Sorry, I'm putting emphasis on the wrong syllables, but
but it's certainly you're making a really good point. People have got to be involved and realize what's going on with their local governments. What happens nationally does not impact as much as what happens here locally. So if you're not involved, Indiantown's a super example, unfortunately, of what can happen. And, we're seeing that, and we're going to cover these areas. And one of the hottest topics was from yesterday's Board of County Commission meeting when they were talking about the fire station out in Indiantown and what's going to happen there. And before we go into that, we're speaking with Eric Miller, talk about Martin. If you have a comment, want to join the discussion, you can call into the show, 772-220-WSTU. That's 220-9788. Or make a comment here on Facebook Live. We got the live video going on my Facebook page, and certainly share your comments as we go along. So tell us a little bit. Yesterday, the Board of County Commission talked about Indiantown is thinking about hiring their own fire services instead of using the counties. And just long story short, I'll say this: Taryn Chris has been going back and forth with Howard Brown, your village manager, and the truth is, at the end of the day, what they're proposing in Indiantown is not any cheaper than what they're getting through the already fire services that are working great through the county.
There was a workshop meeting that came out on Saturday, and the consultant now somehow has come back and said that they can do it for $1.3 to $1.8 million.
So they came back far cheaper than earlier.
All of a sudden, yeah, they went from their original 4.8, which was actually about 5.3 to 5.5, which was about equal to what they're paying right now for the best service that they're going to get. These guys here locally, this fire department, say what you will, say what it costs you, but this is a nationally renowned group of men and women, several of them that I know. And I personally want to thank all of you for being out there. I know you get a few days off in a row and everything. Wish I did too, but you deserve it because of the work that you do. And we're grateful that you and our sheriff's department are out there, and the rest of the EMS. So thank you for being there, guys. But yeah, to try to say that you can bring in a whack and hut service for $1.8 million, lease fire trucks and do something to build a fire station, they weren't even going to be able to tie into the county 911. There's all kinds of things that were left out of the proposal. And the question has to be asked then, if it's such a senseless item, why are you looking at doing it? What is the rush to get this thing under your own umbrella?
Right.
And to me, as a fledgling village, they just purchased and paid $500,000 more than the asking price for a
We're going to talk about that. Yes.
Water system.
Yes.
Okay, which, it failed on Sunday. We can get into that later. But when you can't even get the infrastructure that you have as big boys and girls working in a timely period, what makes you think that you're going to be able to oversee fire rescue, especially when your people don't show up at Parks and Rec on time and are hardly ever there? I mean, you can't even oversee your people, Howard. And you have to ask. So why are they doing it? What's the big push?
So, and from the meeting yesterday, we learned, and I'll talk about it a little bit clearer. Taryn Krista said that Indiantown pays about $5.4 million to Martin County for fire rescue, but they also get an incentive from FPL that brings the cost down to $4.6 million for Indiantown. So in Indiantown, their hybrid rescue model would cost about $6.6 million. This is according to TC Palm in its first year, and then it would be $4.8 million. So I don't know what this latest study is that they brought out of $1.3 million. It seems impossible as much as fire rescue cost.
Well, we have it on notes that were taken from people that were at the workshop, because these workshops mysteriously don't end up online. They don't end up being noticed
So they should have
properly.
public
They
notice.
just have, well, I mean, I'm sure they put it in the Stewart News. There's a difference in legal and a difference in ethical. And there are some really fine ethical lines that are being crossed in Indian town. It's time to get these guys out.
So a couple comments. RJ Posey, thank you for joining. Government is the problem, not the solution. Ronald Reagan. That's an excellent quote. Amy Pritchard, appreciate you tuning in. She was a guest last week. She has a few comments we'll talk about here, Eric.
Sure.
Eric, yesterday's speech by Janet Fernandez was divisive. They are trying to turn this into something it isn't. As soon as she started speaking, I turned to my friend and said, here we go. It's going down the rabbit hole. And she followed up with, I was lucky enough to speak with Barbara Cloudis, who did the series, and told her that the writing was excellent. Then I was able to speak to one of the councils named Sue. So tell us a little bit of what she's talking about, the divisiveness from Janet Fernandez yesterday.
Well, let's go back to the progressive nature of the way things are right now and understand that Janet and Anthony are both under the age of 35. Anthony being with a young progressive group called the Young Elected Officials, which is an outwardly progressive group that has Ileana Omar in their camp, right? Mr. Brown has also given progressive getting diversity, equity, and more Black inclusion into county government and on progressive as a progressive panelist. So at a certain point, the actions, the words, the people they associate themselves with, the ideologies begin to sew the clothes that they wear, and their words begin to demonstrate it, and their actions now are showing the outcomes from it. And unless there is a resistance put up the way it should be, civilly and peacefully, against these types of actions, which means voting them out and recalling them, and redressing them through peaceful protest, which we have a right to do, you're going to continue to see comments like Janet made and insinuating that this is a racial put down of a Black and brown community, in the words that she used, from the commission, because they are of a minority population in Indiantown. Trying to equate everything back to racism is, every time you turn around, you hear Anthony saying something about it, or Howard's dealing with it, or there are several people that are racist on their own on that council, but it is a different type of racism to which they don't think they can be racist because they're not white.
Let me ask you this, Eric. I have my own opinion about this, but I don't live in Indiantown. Prior to this council, do you feel that racism was a big problem in Indiantown?
I never experienced it. I was there for 11 years. When I campaigned for presidential candidates and local candidates as a member of the Republican Party, I would canvass Indiantown, and part of the places that I would go would be Booker Park. I would go through the predominantly core center of town, uptown as they call it, where it's a more Hispanic and Central American blend of people. I never felt once in Indiantown that I'm a concealed carry permit holder. I never carried my weapon with me. Indiantown was a place where you ran into somebody and you've known them for years because you've seen them day after day for years. And yes, there are racists in this world. And yes, there are probably racists in Indiantown, but I don't associate with those people. Right. And unfortunately now I'm being labeled a racist. There's no discussion of all people of Indiantown. Evidently it's my people. When we talk about my people, I mean, I don't like it, and it's got to stop. Well,
here from Barbara Cloudis's article in the conclusion, she had stated that Mayor Hernandez and Councilman Anthony Dowling said whatever the goals of the incorporation were, they no longer apply. The past is their mantras. Hernandez threw up her hands in the air during a strategic meeting session last September. Quote, "I'm sick of hearing government light. That's in the past. The past is over. We're moving forward."
Yeah, and they're not asking for anyone. Anthony has said repeatedly in these workshops that I've been able to attend, he said, well, we'll just have to do this and drag the people along with us until we get it to where we want, and then we can give them a position to, feel like they're doing something on a committee. We're just going to have to drag the people with us. That's great, Anthony. Well, he did say at the meeting the last time, he chastised, which I have to tell you, I have never been so embarrassed for a municipality in my entire life as I was at that last village council meeting. And if you haven't seen it, go to talkaboutmartin.com, look under Council Corner, look under No Mo Mr. Nice Guy, and you're going to be able to see some of the replays coming up on that. That we're going to deal with, where Anthony Dowling made comments that, the executive director wasn't supposed to come into his house and tell them what they should be doing.
Whose house? Whose house?
Yeah, I know. Anthony says this while he's sitting behind a microphone as a councilman that she should not come into his house and tell him what to do. Like your house, this is the people's house, young
taxpayers.
man.
That's
This is
right.
the people's house, and they're the ones coming in telling you what you're supposed to be doing. But see, you've got this progressive mind block that's up there that forgets about the individual spirit of Americans and the constitutionality and the way things are supposed to work. It's sort of like bad is good and good is bad now. And that's the whole progressive mantra, even nationally. They're trying to take good things and make them bad. They're trying to make bad things and make them good. And these kids have been taught this from day one through the colleges, through the higher learning institutions, and now they're rolling it out in K through 12 through critical race theory, which is the final peg in this that's been going on in our educational system for a long time. So it's here. I'm no longer a tinfoil hat wearing conspiracy theorist. It's in your backyard, Martin County. The rest of the world that you're looking at is in your backyard.
RJ, why doesn't Incorporated Indiantown set up a self-managed voluntary fire department sovereign from Martin County like many communities do elsewhere? Is it a state statute regulation mandate that doesn't allow for sovereign choice? Costs can be controlled that way, unlike Martin County.
It can, and there's a couple nuances to that. At one point, there was an all-fire volunteer fire department for Indiantown. Ernie Banks, who we actually was at the last protest and did some interviews with, he was one of the firefighters that was involved with that. And then it went across to Martin County. A big portion of that was the ability to deal with the industrial accidents that have and can take place. You remember when Wiesel blew up out here in Stewart?
Yes,
and that was pointed out at the commission meeting yesterday, how they had to call in resources immediately. Here's the deal. Indiantown, $280,000 rough dollars a year come from rooftop residential ad valorem taxes. $280,000 is all that comes in from the people that live there. They make up 5% of the revenue that they have for general fund expenditure.
The rest are businesses.
The 95 are industrial, commercial, like FPL, which has hazmat requirements. They have certain needs that are required to be able to deal with. So the expense is something that's spread across all of the Martin County Fire Rescue right now. If you bring that in-house, you're going to have to at least equal the service, or FP&L, 90% of 85% of your ad valorem base is going to say, hasta la vista, baby.
Right.
You know, we're out of here.
Right.
And that's an interesting point we need to circle back to real quick too.
Okay.
But the other thing is that, you know, even if it is a volunteer fire department, it will change what's called the ISO rating. And when these departments are given an ISI, International Standard of Operation. Oh, I do not like ISO standards.
Right.
It's so globalist, but they put them on there. And the reason that's important is because your homeowner's insurance, whether you live in Indiantown or in Martin County, your homeowner's insurance is affected. Part of the quotient of variable they use to calculate what they're going to charge you to insure your place is the ISO rating of the fire services and sheriff's services that you have available to you. So if you diminish the ISO level, which bringing Wackenhut Fire Rescue in is, I think, going to diminish it from a nationally renowned kind of people. Indiantown, listen, your property insurance will increase dramatically if you let this happen. Where were we circling back to?
We're going to circle back here to the commission meeting for a moment, because let's be clear here. 4 of the commissioners spoke extremely strongly against Indiantown having their own fire department, and they gave a lot of great reasons why, and you just spoke to part of it, why we should continue with the Martin County Fire Rescue Services. And you know, Commissioner Campy, Commissioner Smith, Commissioner Jenkins, Commissioner Hetherington all said, you need to really rethink this to Howard Brown. And Howard Brown says, oh, we got to negotiate. And I want to bring out this fact here, and I think it was Commissioner Jenkins that brought it up. He said, look, and Commissioner Smith, we're not going to negotiate. This is a fair price already. And if we give you a discount, guess who else has to make up for that? The rest of the communities in Martin County, which is what you were just kind of bringing up, even with the insurance cost for the residents of Indiantown.
I think the word that Commissioner Jenkins used was subsidize. And
go.
That's a favorite word for this crew out here, is subsidized, because some of them are actually living in subsidized housing. So, I mean, understanding subsidized is something they understand real well. But see, and the question he asked, and it was asked by more than one commissioner, you're right, is what is it that makes you think that you're so special that the rest of the people of the county should subsidize you? Why? And the I'm telling you, the inferential energy that's driving this engine is because we're Black and because we're brown. They really believe that they're owed something because of their race, and it affects their decision making. It affects their thinking.
I think that was actually
sad.
brought up by the mayor yesterday in her public comment, that what are you going to do because we're a Black and brown community and you don't send your fire rescue out to help us.
Right.
She tried to make it a racist issue.
Every time they turn around, that's all they have to fall back on is this teaching that they've been given that white man bad. It used to be orange man bad. Now it's white man bad.
We've got a lot of comments coming in here on Facebook. Before I do, we're talking about, different cost here. And he wants the rest of the county to subsidize Indiantown's fire rescue. But in the meantime, there are a lot of expenses going on within Indiantown under the management of Howard Brown, including a good raise for himself and consultants he's bringing in. So this money is being doled out. As a matter of fact, I believe if I have it here from Barbara's part 1 about the money, let's see. Let me just read this. A new beginning or the beginning of the end. It's actually part 2, Barbara Cloudis' series. Within 3 months of Howard Brown's appointment as the new Village of Indiantown's manager, the mission and vision statements have been rewritten, goals rearranged. He said there were too many, so previous goals listed as strategies. And operating the government went from 1 million then to 2 million. And now, after 2 years with Brown at the helm, the budget portion just for operating Indiantown's government is projected for 4 million in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
But yet they actually are coming to the county commission and saying they need to renegotiate the cost of the fire.
Well, you want to talk about negotiations and the stupidity of their strategies. And this is why I keep asking, why bring on this debt load? Because 2 years from now, just around 2 years, let's just say 18 months to 2 years, the FP&L TPP grant, which they're given, is going to come up for renegotiation. And they're going to look at those people and say, look, let's not be stupid. I have 85% of the money that you need to run this thing. We have an option. We're either going to drop down by 40 or 50% and stay, or like we told the commission back in the day, man, they flipped that county commission back in the day like a pancake. They said, hey, we got a yard ready in Clewiston, and all we have to do is put a call in and start hooking our trucks up, and they'll start moving everything. So you decide, do you want that to stay in Martin County, or do you want it to go to Clewiston, where we can move it and still be strategically located for hurricanes? Well, I mean, you really want the equipment here because it's staged for hurricane relief. I kind of like having it in my backyard. Right. That's great. But the fact of the matter is, like you're saying about this increase in budget, the spend, debt. They just brought on a grant writer. And they're going to try to live on grants now for general budget expenditures. You don't do that. They're too specialized.
That's right.
Grants are. But again, a year and a half down the road, Indiantown, FP&L is going to be coming to the table, and your counsel, Janet Hernandez, like you saw with Howard Brown trying to negotiate with the commission yesterday, and how they got their hat handed to them and walked out holding their backsides because they got chewed pretty good. Wait till FP&L comes in. What are you going to do then? Because remember, the houses that you own out there and the taxes you pay are $288,000 of the drop in the bucket that's taking to pay $4 million worth of operational budget that's being put together. That's math. That's not racism. That's math.
That's right. It is.
So I don't get it. I don't get this whole fire rescue thing, especially when you got $20 million to go on a water treatment plant to get it up and running. Remember, Indiantown, you were without water this last Sunday morning. Remember that? And we were warning people ahead of time. See, here's the deal, guys. You've got 3 pumps in that thing. Okay, 3 pumps in that in your water system. 2 of them are already non-operational, which means you have no failover. When the 3rd one fails, there's nothing to fail over to help you. Well, guess what? The 3rd one was failing. It wasn't given proper attention, and it finally failed. It was an electrical issue that caused it. And it ended up causing a mainline water break that leads out to the industrial park, which you're trying to sell that property out there and get developed so you can get some commercial ad valorem in. But that really helps when your infrastructure can't keep up with it. So why are you trying to take over fire rescue when you can't even run a water treatment plant? And don't tell me you haven't had time. You've had almost 8 months. So let's talk about this like adults.
100%. Let's catch up here on some Facebook comments. Daniel Williamson, I've lived in Indiantown for 36 years, and I I can attest that I have never witnessed malicious racial hatred. Our friends and family come from all races, backgrounds, religions, and political beliefs, and so much more. And I know many of these people from varying backgrounds will give the shirts off their backs, myself included, to help any human being in my community. Indian Town should not be labeled black, brown, white, yellow. We are all humans that deserve better than a label. Playing the black-brown community card was extremely inappropriate on our mayor's behalf.
Amen.
Amen is right. Another comment, Amy Pritchard, she said that she has heard that Howard is trying to sway the council. The county administration is lying about the cost. And I actually have an email, and there's quite a few folks. Government can be
like Watergate for Indian
it
Town,
truly
man.
is. Government can be pretty transparent. Martin County, the Board of County Commissioners, just search emails. You can search the county administrator's emails and the county commissioner's emails. In those emails, Taryn Krista, our county administrator, written Howard Brown, the village manager in Indian Town. Howard, I was sent the presentation that was presented to your council on Saturday on fire rescue and options for service. I'm not sure why you continue to provide inflated numbers to your council on what the county collects via ad valorem taxes from the taxable values in Indian Town. It's roughly 5.3 million, not 5.9 million that your consultant is reflecting in his presentation. Could you please use factual numbers instead of inflated ones? Thank you. This is not the only email, and this is not the only time. Matter of fact, there was some word exchanges between them yesterday when they talked about having a joint meeting between the county commission and Indian Town.
Yeah, towards the end of the meeting when Howard had to skip up to the podium.
He ran
again,
up to the podium.
And it was very interesting because Taryn was able to say, this time, no, Mr. Brown, again, that is not what I said. What I said is up there on that screen in front of you.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. And he has this habit of it's either conveniently forgot or misunderstood or apologized away, or I thought, look, there's an agenda that's taking place in Indian Town, people, and Howard Brown is driving it. And several of your commissioners, your council people, look, as people, I'm sure they're lovely. As council people, you stink. Okay. You're being led down the primrose path. You've got new power. You're young. You're ambitious. I know that you think that you have everyone's interests at heart, but you're not listening to them because the hearts of the people are speaking. I'm told this Saturday that there will be there's a potential, it's still tentative, listening tour by a certain county commissioner and councilwoman that will be held in Post Park. This is still to be confirmed.
Okay.
This Saturday, probably in the evening, but you'll be
Talk
finding
about
out
Martin.
more.
We'll cover that,
We'll
right?
cover it and let you know. And we'll get it out through our network. But again, I'm told too that there will be another protest before the next village council meeting, which will be not this Thursday, but the Thursday following. And people again will be outside peacefully protesting and letting the council know through proper redress of, civic rights that they're not happy with what they're doing. You can't make these guys change their minds. They have to do it themselves, but they're going to have a change of heart first. And to try to find unity again, there's going to have to be a period of reconciliation in between. And I think that comes probably from all sides of the fence, because it's getting to the point of being a wedge in the community, and it's doing what it's doing nationally. It's breaking down bridges between groups of people that are all neighbors and Americans. And we got to ask ourselves, what's this do for us in the long run? And that's kind of why we're trying to point this out, because there's a bushwhacking that's taking place out there. It's either going to turn into a democratically run Pahokee, Belglade, Clewiston that's corrupt and lives off of USDA grants and HUD grants, or we're going to end up back in a community that's at the benefit of everyone, and we prosper. It has so much potential. I just don't understand why it's being squandered away on socialist precepts.
I certainly do not either. And, let's talk a little bit about Howard Brown. You were talking about corruption. What I found was interesting, and again, folks, Barbara Cloudis, amazing journalist, amazing expose on Indian Town. Please read it. All the links are on my Facebook page to the story. The people that Howard Brown are hiring, are they from within Indian Town?
No, there are people that have actually applied for jobs from Indian Town that are more than qualified, credentialed to do, that have not been hired. A lot of his people, if you will, his grant writer that just came on at almost $90,000 a year, at this last meeting, I believe, is an Opalaka left over with him. There are consultants and people he's using from his past job. So it's sort of like, get you a contract over here and, let's bada boom. You never know what happens to the money once it goes to the consultant because the sunshine isn't there. You'd have to sue to see where the money's actually being spent, and then you'd have to probably follow a corporate trail of shell corporations to figure out that it was actually dispersed someplace. Now, this is conjecture. I'm not saying this is what's happening, but I've seen it happen before. We've all seen this happen before, and it's the way it works. And I'm sorry, you sew enough stitches in your jacket and you start to wear it. It's the cloth you wear every day. You might want to consider getting a new tailor.
Well, speaking of Howard Brown again, I like that. Speaking of Howard Brown again, if you go through Barbara Cloudis's expose, it talks about how he was hired and what he claimed in his resume. And I do say claimed. People
falsely.
Yes. And it's very shocking. And this man has been put in to lead the city of Indiantown. And the council is ultimately responsible for his employment. He works for them. The people are now speaking to the council saying, hey, we're not happy with these decisions. So I think there's really a movement afoot, right?
Well, I don't think that Howard Brown's days, I'll look right into the camera and say this. I think your days are numbered as a village manager in this community, Howard. And I think for the interest of the good of the people, that you should suggest that you step down because of the lack of I won't even have you say lack of confidence. Step down because of the turmoil that's being caused by the actions that you're taking. Do what's right for this community, and let's start again. It's not too late to put this back into the bottle a little bit.
Absolutely. And if you look back at his background, he came from what was it, Opalaka? Opalaka. There's a lot of ties there, and there was actually investigations in Opalaka, not necessarily FBI. That's right. Thank you. Yeah. Yes.
For corruption.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Howard was never tied to that formally or publicly, but he was part of that administration to which he claimed title of having that he never had, and used that on his resume when he was hired. So he oversold himself to try to get in the door. Look, the guy's a good salesman. Okay. It's what he does. He's just good at it. I mean, really, Howard, you're good at it. You can sell, ice to an Eskimo, but that doesn't do much of good when your agenda behind it doesn't have an eternal purpose to it. And I don't see where it's going, man.
Well, and that's the other issue too, was his experience. It definitely was not as pumped up as he made it to the council. So this is kind of a different position here, and I want to. It's in part 3 of Barbara Cloudis's expose, where Brown markets himself to Indiantown. She said all the resumes were standard except his was visionary leader and turnaround expert. It had buzzwords that really attracted the commissioners, and it worked.
He got a good resume coach. What
he wasn't
can I say?
recommended.
There's a lot of them that make money doing that.
there are, and he wasn't recommended as one of the finalists either. He came in and, as you said, just kind of sold himself, which he can do very well.
Jackie Clark wanted to know before they met him what race he was. She openly said that at the meeting. Jackie Clark wanted to know what race he was. And that's on tape. It's a recorded, documented, minutes put out meeting. So I'm not pulling anything that's not on public record out.
So I won't go through everything, but Brown's resume went on to say he's the current position of city manager of the city of Bell, California. Except he was no longer employed at Bell at that time. And she questions, was it unethical not to update his resume, or was it just an oversight? He also said he was acting assistant city manager for the city of Opalaka, a position that Opalaka Human Resource Department said Brown never held. He writes that he directly supervised and managed police, human resources, IT, finance, public works, and on and on and on. In a public records check, Brown's name was not listed as a staff member attending any of the city's council meetings for the previous 6 months prior to his resignation in December 2013. Opalaka's policy for meeting minutes list every staff member present in council chambers at each meeting. So this is just a little bit of that excerpt.
You're so racist.
Racist, yes, exactly. That's the answer to it, isn't it?
And that's what's happening right now.
That is the answer.
People are going to start. Oh, they're just racist. Listen, they're just trying to tear this poor black man down.
Yes.
He made a simple mistake. Look, these mistakes have been mounting and mounting and mounting and mounting, and again, He's wearing the clothes.
Brent Wallenberg, Winston Churchill said socialism, communism is the gospel of envy. I think all this racism crap is just an attempt to knock down your fellow U.S. citizen and get a leg up on them instead of getting ahead by hard work and clean living.
It is. They're trying to break our culture down and separate us.
And that is what divisive racism is.
Yeah.
And it's so sad because as Barbara had pointed out, Thelma Waters is such an icon in your community. Wonderful Black woman. And I think she would be just absolutely so distraught to see what's happening to her beautiful Indian town right now with all this racism, talk of racism, and they're using racism, using it to divide the community even more. It's very sad, very sad. Amy Pritchard, Mr. Brown lied about his credentials and came in with shady intentions, which is what we just talked about a little bit more. So, people are really involved here. There's so many different issues going on. How about the land that they're purchasing to build your city hall on?
Well, I lived next door to the person that sold it. And and I'm not saying that this is where I got the information from, but I can tell you that the land was not on the market. The land was eyeballed and wanted. The land that was purchased is the prime piece of commercial property that's undeveloped at the base of the bridge coming into Indiantown. They paid $500,000 over market price more than what the appraisal came in at to coerce the person to sell it. I mean, if you came to me with $500,000 extra dollars over what I was asking for a 5-acre commercial property in a fledgling village that's getting ready to just blow up with development, I'd probably take it too. But the property was built with the idea to build monuments to Howard Brown. I mean, they'll name the pool the Howard Brown pool, probably. They want a whole pool and gymnasium and offices, and you've got a YMCA that has all of that, a Boys and Girls Club that has a gymnasium, but no, we got to have one at City Hall too. What are you, man? I mean, this isn't Miami, guys. Come on, this is you got $288,000 in ad valorem rooftop. Come on.
And we have time here. I'll go to Barbara's expose again just about this. Withholding information, telling lies. The county offered soon after Brown arrived to lease their entire government complex to Indiantown for the village offices, part of which they'd been using since incorporation. Brown rejected the offer. When the council was considering the purchase of land to build a village hall, which Brown was pushing them hard to do, 2 parcels were being considered: a 3-acre parcel adjacent to the Goodyear Tire and Repair Service building wrapped by the Indiantown DRI development, or a 5-acre plus parcel at the foot of Big John Mullahan Bridge, both on Warfield Boulevard, with 60-day due diligence. Brown suggested the council cut that to 30 days, which they did, which I find very odd. Due diligence takes time. Why would the buyer want to cut your due diligence time other than to hurry the process along? Unnecessarily.
For something that you haven't mentioned here, and I'm not sure if Barbara goes on to mention it, and I don't remember verbatim, but there's a group called the Garcia Group, the same people that just did a slash and burn clearing under an agricultural license instead of a commercial license, that actually owns adjacent property to this. They actually knocked down an eagle's nest as well, just so you know. Yeah. No, I mean, there's no regard for what's going on. The Garcia Group had sat with Howard and had told him that they would like to actually incorporate some of the land that they have in their development of regional impact, which went back by that Goodyear and that 3-acre, and help them develop and make it a centerpiece of the new development, which is supposed to become the core urban area of the town. And they were going to help them and help fund it, but that wasn't good enough for Howard. So we had to move through this quickly, I guess, before the Garcia Group had a chance to get to any of the council people and let them know that was an option.
And that's exactly, and Barbara does go into that, and you just explained it very well. And as you said, they paid $450,000 above the appraised value for the other parcel. And also, to spur the council toward building the village hall, Brown told them that County Administrator Taryn Krista had kicked them out of the county's government building.
Which
Another
Taryn
lie.
told them yesterday is just an outright lie. You were not. Taryn explained it perfectly. The property appraiser's office was in there with. There was a tax appraiser, or it was one of the constitutional offices was housed that they gave the Indiantown village the ability to come in and use temporarily. That's when they had 2 and 3 people as employees. As they started getting up into 11 and 12 and 20 people, they said, look, guys, we've got federal guidelines and state standards we have to follow with privacy information for property tax owners and other citizens. We have vaults, we have certifications and audits we have to do. You're getting too big. You got to start thinking. Well, Howard had told him, hey, no problem. Hey, we just bought this new piece of property. We'll get ourselves some portables and go sit on that for a while. And that's what Taryn explained in the meeting yesterday, that was a conversation that was had, and Howard has denied that conversation the whole time. So, you're leaving out information that you're supposed to be giving to the people that you're supposed to be serving, the council, and you're not giving them all the information for them to make the decisions for the people. So I find that to be highly unethical and wrong, and a big problem with the government in the village. Well, I don't trust Howard Brown.
You do not. And it's very frightening. You have commissioners saying that they no longer want government light. Folks, this is exactly what the leftist, the liberal, they want people to be dependent on government. And that's what's happening here. Like you said, their taxes are going to be raised to cover all these expenses. I mean, the more that...
It's worse than that, Casey. Think about this for a second. They just brought on at the last meeting and voted on a grant writer. Okay, grants are wonderful redistribution of wealth if you can get one, okay? Hey, if you're going to play a racial card in a minority, urban, enterprise zone area, and you want to play it up, and the federal government's got a fountain on from Uncle Joe, well, just go ahead, soak it all up. But here's the caution for you. On the back end of that, when you're getting housing and urban development grants, USDA grants, all of these national level grants, guess what the last 40% of the document is? Requirements of things that you will now be obligated to fulfill in your practices and standards. You will have to hire a certain number of this. You'll have to do that. You got to do this. You got to build that. You got to do this. So the federal government ends up taking over your local government, which is the complete opposite of the way it should go. Grants are bad.
Here's another thing that really caught my eye with this expose is the community groups. I'm not struggling for the right word. The CRAs, the things that have been taken away that were made up of citizens of Indiantown, volunteer citizens to help make the government transparent, to make recommendations to the council. Under Howard Brown, these have been disbanded.
So they've all been disbanded. Yeah, the LDR committees.
Thank you. Yes.
The committees from the Chamber of Commerce, from that were helping. And these were committees that were set up in the transition process and were helping to put the initial plan together. And the council was actually using these ideas until they brought in a village manager. And he said, we don't need you anymore. We have our own set of rules.
And these were a lot of good business people, as well as just residents
that live there.
And no, instead he's hiring people from outside of the community, disbanding these groups. It was the CRA. The CRA is very important, by the way. That does help bring in money to the community if you have a CRA from state level.
I'm not a big fan of CRAs, but we can have a conversation about that. Barbara is. I know a lot of people are, but
that's a whole different tax issue about how your tax dollars are spent, right?
The only thing is with Indiantown, the whole village would have to be a CRA.
Okay.
So it's kind of a self-defeating purpose to say you're going to take tax increment financing over the whole village, and where do you keep it in the whole village? You're regurgitating the same tax back into things.
So RJ, you had mentioned that, but can rural and the underserved afford it, or will the rest of Martin County subsidize incorporated village by them not paying their fair share? # collective socialism. Yeah, that is what it is.
It is.
Collective socialism.
Yeah, exactly.
And yes, the rest of the community would have to subsidize, and we talked about that.
Yeah.
That's exactly what
because
Commissioner Jenkins
and the
mentioned.
reason that it would end up being subsidized is because Martin County has a constitutional and legal responsibility to provide service to those boundaries outside of the village of Indiantown, which is in western Martin County, much, much larger than the village itself. So they will have to move their facilities now, their trucks. They're talking about actually taking the facility in Indiantown and putting it in Palm City. I don't like it. Stop. Do not do this, guys. You're making a mistake.
Barbara Cloudis again mentions under more council manipulation, Brown encouraged Indiantown to sever all ties to Martin County required if they were truly to become independent, a comment repeated by council members frequently over the past 2 years. Mayor Hernandez's outbursts indicate that she's being told that the neglect of Indiantown by the largely white East Coast is due to bias toward Indiantown's largely non-white population. Brown fosters contempt toward Indiantown's representatives on the county commission, Harold Jenkins, by telling council member, he talks to council members like you're third graders. And believe me, I know Commissioner Jenkins very well. That man would not speak to them like third graders. He is the most down-to-earth county commissioner.
No, I can tell you, because he was so frustrated at the end of that meeting, he was going to have the final comment. And Stacy called on him yesterday, and you can watch it. He sat up, his microphone went red. He looked at the microphone and went, screw it, sat back down. He said, it's not worth the 2 cents I got left to put in. So, you Anthony, you talk about going into somebody's house, bro. I mean, even by your own code, what happened yesterday was wrong. I don't know who you guys think you are, but you are servants of the people, and you need to start listening to them. I know there's recall elections that people are already organizing for Janet and Guyton. I know that there's a lot of people organizing to make sure that Anthony doesn't get back in next time around. Jackie's kind of playing the middle ground on this, and I think has, done enough favors for people along the way that she just might make it through. But I don't know. There has to be a change, and it has to be done constitutionally, civically, so that there's faith in the outcome. This can't be a political overthrow of just narrative. But Howard can be. If there's enough people in this village that don't want him, he becomes a political liability for the sitting council people, and his own professional liability becomes something at stake too. That's just the raw fact on this, like FP&L owning 85% of the tax base. So at some point, Howard, there's going to have to be a change in direction, or I'm telling you, it's not me, it's the people that are going to make the move to say, you got to get rid of him.
And what a mistake, in my opinion, that you're trying to separate Indiantown from the rest of Martin County and saying, the rest of the county is racist against you and we've got to be independent. Exactly. I mean, we are all the same county, which is why you started, by the way, Talk About Martin, to make sure the unity is there, to help bring together the voices from all sides of the county, north, south, east, and west.
Exactly. And they're not all necessarily aligned with my political philosophies or anyone. Again, we do a lot of reporting outside of politics. We talk about the good things that are going on.
That's right.
We actually have some jokes. We play some movies every once in a while. I mean,
Right.
It's a fun place. But anyway.
RJ says, yes, KC, Indiantown people cannot support the Martin County fire response cost. And that's absolutely right, RJ. As we pointed out, most of the costs are picked up by the industrial, the commercial, and the businesses out there. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, $200,000 out of a $4.6 million bill is only the residents of Indiantown, the $200,000 portion. The rest,
is coming from the commercial.
That's right.
No, it's in your boundaries. I get it. However,
that's right. That's absolutely right.
And they're not. Come on, they've got to be realistic enough to know that they're being sold a bill of goods on this. To go from a 4.3 million worth of consult, and all of a sudden now they got to jump at a workshop a couple days later to 1.8 on the high end. Come on, guys.
So truly, people, I mean,
it's insane.
It is insane. It's shocking. It's surprising. I said this morning, be careful what you wish for.
Because when you look at it from the outside, I think that there's some good people involved in this that are walking in a very dense forest of trees. When I was in the infantry in Germany and walking through the Black Forest, you learned how to navigate in large, dense areas. And I'm afraid that these guys are pulling a Moses right now with the people, and they're out in the wild and they're running around in circles because how do you build such a racial barrier around an entire municipality and then take that as the vision for common mission to drive goals? If it's going to be based on those precepts, you're going to end up in places that you're going to have people in conflict with your thoughts and the ways that you want to do things. It's not going to work either. Listen to the people. Just listen to the people.
It's absolutely what needs to be done. And it's such a shame. I've done so many shows on racism, and we're trying to tear down those walls. And here they are right in Indiantown under Howard Brown's lead, trying to build those walls up. And that's what it appears like to me.
Again, I mean, how many stitches do you have to put into a suit until it fits you?
Right.
I'm not the one sewing his jacket. He is.
Right. Eric Miller, you had mentioned that there was some protest already. Is there anything else planned? You said possibly this Saturday, which you'll update on talkaboutmartin.com.
Yep, we didn't have verification, but we're like on a 90% certainty that we're going to have a couple of elected officials out in the park Saturday at 5:00 in Post Park. for a listening tour. They want to hear from you. They want to know what your thoughts are on the fire rescue. And then again, before the next village hall meeting that's coming up, not this Thursday, but next, we're told that people are already talking. And that's what was so cool about this. There wasn't an organizer to this. This was just
came
people
together.
that organically came together that said, we need to. Will you go? And someone said, yeah, I'll go. And another one said, well, we're going. And 4 more people said, well, we'll go too. And you had 100 people there, 80 outside for over a couple hours. And you had at least 25 people that drove by. Every race was represented at this. Okay, guys. So yeah, next Thursday, come on back out. I think we're probably going to have 200 to 300 people from the things I'm seeing online and people I'm talking to, because they're bringing friends this time. People are listening, and there's going to have to be some changes made.
Again, we're speaking with Eric Miller from talkaboutmartin.com. If you have any questions or comments, 772-220-WSTU. That's 220-WSTU-9788. Or joining on Facebook Live. And there's some comments I'm going to come back to. But as you're speaking about these protests, I've got to bring up one of my most favorite quotes ever, and it's Margaret Mead. Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed individuals can change the world. In fact, it's the only thing that ever has. And that's exactly what's happening here in Indiantown. It's the grassroots. It's the people coming together. You can make that change.
It's like the thorax from Dr. Seuss said, nothing good will ever happen to you unless it starts with you.
There you go.
Yeah.
Another great quote.
I know Margaret Mead and the thorax
yes.
aren't on the same level these days.
You never know.
Yeah.
Casey Ingram Show, anything comes
man,
out.
Dr. Seuss,
Dr. Seuss and
Seuss,
Margaret Mead. Alicia, and I hope I'm pronouncing your last name. You've got it, Parento. The hiring movement across the county is to hire progressives who can write policy for others to enforce. Think city managers, state attorneys, sheriffs. While local elected officials move into county, state, and federal positions, taking the progressive agenda with them over time, boom, then you have socialisms that you did not see coming.
Amen. And now it's down at the most elementary local level, 6,600 people in that village, and it's being run by socialists and Sandinistas.
And, Howard Brown is surrounding himself with his cohorts from other previous positions that did not go so well, bringing them into Indiantown. I thought that was super disappointing that he's not hiring people from within Indiantown itself, the people that know and love the community.
Yeah, there's a couple token people that have been hired that are Indiantown people, but for the top positions, I don't think he wants people from Indiantown knowing what's really going on within the organization.
And it's not government light anymore.
No,
there are so many elected officials or not elected officials hired.
Employees.
Yes, yeah. Employees. It's getting crazy out there. RJ, we must elect real people into our local government, not politicians like we have in our local commissions.
Well, that's Susan Gibbs Thomas. Susan Gibbs Thomas is about as real as it gets. She is a stalwart Christian. She is a great American. She's been involved in the educational system in Martin County and in Indiantown. Her family's been there for 4 generations. So I agree. And she's the one that usually ends up voting against and getting beaten over the head by the other 4. Can you imagine having to be one of 5 up there and have that kind of prejudice against you when you're trying to do the people's business in a professional way?
So folks, about that, Susan was on the show last time you were here last month. Yesterday, I saw her at that county commission meeting, and she, bless her heart, Susan was running up to that podium to try and smooth over what the mayor and the city manager were doing.
Yeah.
She truly was. We want to work with you. If there's anything left on the table that we can negotiate, that's what we're looking for. She really, folks, in my opinion, she was doing what a representative should.
She put herself out there in a humbling modality that politically was probably not a good thing to do for her. But when I talked to her about it, her comment was it was the right thing to do for the village of Indiantown if there's money left on the table that we can get back because we need it.
She was being passionate, and you could tell she was speaking
Pray
from her
for
heart.
Susan, people. Pray for the village. Pray for Susan. Pray for everybody on the council. Please just pray for them like you've never prayed before, because there's a lack of light that's shining in those chambers right now, and we need some good light to start shining again. Ask yourselves, guys, is it eternal? Is that what you're doing? Or are your actions eternal? Or are you doing worldly things?
So we got just 30 seconds. Amy Pritchard, that's who I was speaking about yesterday. And at Susan, she poured her heart out, so dedicated and committed. And then Howard tried to throw her under the bus. Such a shame. And folks, we are at the end of our hour here today. Eric Miller, talkaboutmartin.com. Please follow that website, because you're going to be informed of all the happenings in Indiantown and around the county. And until then, we'll be back next Wednesday at 10 a.m.
Thank you.